Good evening, everybody. And I must say, I'm really, really excited to be able to welcome so many different professions tonight, and that it's actually quite a good turnout for a little bit of a different topic. And it's wonderful to see how many people are interested. Public talk, we had an absolute full house. We had 110 attendees. So I think people really want to know more. So it's great to see so many faces here. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before I start introducing um, some speakers. So, first of all, for anybody who needs a toilet break, you go down the passage, up the stairs, and it's a door to your left, right? So, whenever you feel the need. Um, I just also quickly want to thank the Scientific Society for actually collaborating so well with us again last night as well as tonight, and having the wonderful IT guy who's helping us. Everything is on Zoom. We're Zooming it last speaker in, and we're also actually recording it for anybody who wants to see it. It will be on the webpage or on the YouTube channel afterwards. So if you have friends that still want to see this, probably will take a week or so, but then you have a chance to actually watch it again. So with regards to food, you're gonna have to earn your right to have the food later on. So it's like a reward for sitting here and listening. And we have a really, really special chef who has prepared absolutely fabulous snacks, and all are gluten-free. And once you've listened to all the talks, you'll understand why. So you have to earn your right to try them. Thank you, Judy, for that. All right. Now, with regards to food as well, usually the Scientific Society doesn't really allow food here because of the wooden floor. So I'm just asking you, be very careful when you eat and use the plates and the serviettes so that we don't have too many marks on this beautiful wooden floor. All right. I think housekeeping wise, that's about it. Without any further ado and boring you, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Yvette Mostert, who's actually going to explain to us why we all sitting here and how this all came about. So, Yvette, please come forward.
Okay, so firstly, I want to thank Vitamin G for the fantastic team of Stephanie and Wesley Grosvenor and Jimmy that they brought for the muscle. So helping us make this event possible. So without them, it would not have been possible. And for all of you that know me a bit, I usually do things differently. So I want to start by explaining the end. So it is a group of us 4 women that came together. So you know Dr. Elga Drews, homeopathic, chiropractic. Is there anything that you don't do? Okay. Anyway, then we have Dr. Juline Smit. She's a specialist physician, and Stephanie Grosvenor, a holistic nutritionist and functional medicine health coach. Then me, GP, and finger in all pies, basically. So, but not specializing in any. Okay, so I'm actually going to use Dr. Juline Smith's quote we had when or what she said when we had a Zoom meeting a while ago. The 4 of us came together, and her goal in life is for better health, and that is by any means possible. By any way possible, better health, and that is my goal in this whole situation, is that we can bridge between disciplines and that we can help each other, because it doesn't matter. At times, you're going to need the pills. At times, you're going to go preventative. Sometimes you need a bit of both. We don't have to work against each other. We want to bridge it. We want to make a stronger team. And by all of you being here, and that is exactly so, that's why I say I'm starting at the end. I want you to walk out here and know that we can collaborate. We can achieve health by any mean possible. That is what we want to achieve. So we're gonna, but yeah, so we are a complete smarty box of disciplines and people together. But then again, who doesn't like smarties? So yeah, any questions? No, sorry. You'll have to go. Okay, oh yeah, sorry, it's a health thing. Sorry, no sugar, no gluten. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and yeah, you already introduced Judy. At this stage, with drinks and things, help yourself. Great soup, everything, and you'll just have to wait a bit for the food. So if there's any question. Let's see who can help you and how we can get things together. And first, Juline is going to help us and come from, as I said, a specialist physician. She's going to give us a bit more of our immune systems, autoimmune, and so forth. So thank you for all being here.
We'll try this for, we need it. Can you hear me all? Perfect. I'm going to do. Do you need it for that? Okay. Can you hear me all? Okay, lovely. I feel a little bit far from you, but apparently we can't move, then we're not on the video. I've never been to the Namibian Scientific Society, so and I am having a quick look. I have a few hardcore colleagues who came to support me, but lots of faces I don't know. Welcome, all of you. Lovely to be here and lovely. And I must say, I don't know why, but I feel a little bit more relaxed compared to speaking when there's a lot of doctors. So even I always feel nervous when they're around. Doctors not always being, I think, the friendliest, and especially when there's other doctors, there's always competition and seeing where they can critique. So lovely to be here. I think in my own practice and in life, I take a very holistic approach. About 10, 15 years ago, I went through a little bit of I work as a special physician, internist, but it's not everything I do, and it by no means defined me. But about 10, 15 years ago, I went through a little bit of a existential crisis because I was looking at what I was doing and what I was seeing in my patients, and I got very confused because all the focus was on disease and understanding disease. And then I realized I've already spent something like 10 years just studying disease. And I think things got a bit better when I realized my problem was that I was interested in health. And in a similar way, I mean, we've got the Olympics coming up. So if you want to get the best team to the Olympics, you don't go and see and study people who've either had disabilities or have been in accidents, and you think, how can we manage that and get to the Olympics, even though Paralympics is great. But you look at people who are top performing or who are in really good state of health, and you ask yourself, what can we learn? And I think medicine at the moment, as we know it, is not doing enough of it. And we are poorer for it, and there's a lot of ego. So if that can go out of the window tonight, I'll be very, very happy. So lovely to be with you. I think I sometimes get excited about things. And then when I start getting information together for, you'll keep an eye on the time. When I start trying to get things together, I'm like, what did I get myself into? And I think tonight's topic, I will by no means, I will give you a little bit of an overview when it comes to autoimmune illness and gut. I think it was Einstein who said, if you can't explain it in very simple terms, you haven't understood it yourself. So now I think that's going to be very difficult because it's extremely complex, the topic I'm going to talk about. But if you can leave with a little bit, oh, that is something new, and links and things, and you can understand it, then great. We're halfway there. If there's some issue with the sound, light, let me know. Okay, so we're going to make a start. Why is it not coming up? So maybe just a quick little bit of background about myself. Went to Stellenbosch Medical School many years ago now. And then after 2-3 years working here and in Cape Town, I specialized in the UK, and COVID and family matters, I would say, got me back just before the 2-year lockdown with COVID. So yeah, lovely to be with you. Okay, so I think I've touched on this a little bit. When you look at the link between the gut and autoimmune illness, I think most people here would understand autoimmune illness in very, very basic terms. Your immune system, all our immune systems, it is there to protect us against illness, infections, and when the immune system gets confused or goes off target and attacks the body itself, then we get autoimmune illness. So if we look, I think it's a very new and developing field talking about gut health. I think for a long time, if you look in medicine, I mean, if you study the heart or the lungs, you're very important, and we forget about all the rest. And I mean the muscles and the skeletal things, or the gut, the dietitians, I mean, and not even speaking about the psychologists and the psychiatrists, what do they do? That's not important. But things are changing, and there's a shift. Recognizing gut health is important, and it's not just important for the gut. So there's a lot of uncertainty. If there's anything you totally disagree with, I'm quite happy that you let me know, but there's a lot I don't know, and I think a lot we're still learning. Going to give you a little bit of an overview. Are you ready for this? I'll take it far and wide, and then I bring it in and I make it relevant. So I think this is an overview of the talk. Why are we at a point that we're asking, are things linked? So just going to touch very briefly, where does this thinking come from? And it goes back 200-300 years ago. So I'll talk a little bit about how philosophers of the time, 200-300 years ago, they were trying to understand things in a similar way today. When you're a mechanic, you start taking a car apart. But then when the car has been taken apart, it doesn't really tell you how it moves and how the different parts are connected to get movement. So, but the philosophers 300 years ago, they started taking things apart to better understand it. And I don't think it was a bad thing, but it was part of a process. And I think we're asking questions like, what is the link between autoimmune disease and the gut? Because things have been taken apart, and now we're looking at it for links. In looking at that link, we'll talk a little bit about biology in the body and the role of the vagus nerve and the gut-brain axis. Then we'll look at the gut microbiome. So this is almost like the environment of the gut. Even though it's inside of you, it's environment and it's outside. And then, do we have psychologists here? No psychologist? Oh, okay, one. Wonderful. So just for you. Then I'll bring in the psychological part as well, because we do know emotion also plays in on the gut and plays on our health. So we look at the body, the environment. Dietitians will be very happy with what is happening there. And then we look at the emotional side, and we try and make the link. You happy? Ready for that? Let's see how we go. Okay, so 1600s, Descartes. This is a gentleman, I don't know if any of you, any budding philosophers in the audience, anyone interested in philosophy? Okay, interested, wonderful. Another one too, we're getting there. Philosophy, they say, can never, it's like art. It doesn't pay well, but very important. So Descartes was he was a philosopher, and some of his thinking that is, believe it or not, if you never heard of him, but it's influencing the way we do things. Why do we have that some of medical field specialties are not here tonight? It's because the doctors do their things apart, and then physiotherapists and everyone sort of separately. And some of that, go and have a read from Descartes. So he said the body and the mind are separate. This is why you get, like the physicians and the, say, physiotherapists, chiropractors, focus on the body. Yeah, quite different from what the psychologist and the psychiatrist is doing. I think it had a role. It led to the different specialities focusing on understanding and really developing their field, which has been a good thing. But we've moved apart, and I think that is part of why we sometimes now have problems. Okay, I'm going to start with the body. It's what I know. So the gut is an interesting thing. And I want you to, I'm going to turn a little bit, maybe normal scientific thinking a little bit on its head. There's understanding things happen in the environment, you think, and then it affects the body, like that. I want you to consider that your gut is actually where information comes into, and then you react. So not in the outside, your brain, and then you feel it in your gut and in your body. If we look back to generations before us, sometimes we are too clever for ourselves, the modern human being, and we get ourselves in lots of trouble. We're even destroying the earth, which is another thing. But look at our language. It's taken years to develop. Gut, I would say, is a metaphor for emotion. It carries a lot of very detailed emotion if we talk about our gut. So we had knowledge years before that we have probably lost. If we talk about trust your gut, a gut feeling, spill your guts, it's all we're talking about something we're feeling in our bodies. Yeah. So it's actually a way of talking about very strong emotion. So I think I'm making the argument, you sensing things are coming in through your environment, you're sensing it in your gut, the emotion, that then goes to your brain, who now says, I need to react, maybe say something or do something. So it's a slightly different way from the way we taught in traditional medicine. The gut, why do we sometimes, maybe you fall in love, get butterflies, or maybe you were, God forbid, almost in an accident and you have this dreadful feeling on your tummy. What is happening? What is happening? So there's something called the celiac plexus or solar plexus. If you look at our friends, maybe, I think, it now feels like another life. I did some training as a yoga teacher. So they talk about solar plexus, and in medicine they talk about celiac plexus, but it's exactly the same thing. And why is it called solar? Because the nerves that you're feeling that is active in your abdomen, and if you have a look, let's see if I can point. Don't know if it's projecting well, but it looks a little bit like a sun with sun rays. Okay, so that is a very important network, concentrated network of nerves. It is a little bit on autopilot. It takes in what's happening in the environment and it responds and it gives you this feeling. Your brain, which is very clever, needs time to catch up with what is happening. So this is what is happening in the gut, the link with emotion. I want you to know about that. Then, so I think just another picture to put it into perspective. If we talk about this involuntary, unconscious nervous system that is working, and I'm focusing on that because that is the system that gets affected and is involved with autoimmune illness. So I'm starting to make the link. Stay with me. This is talking about the parasympathetic nervous system, and the vagus nerve is prominent in it. Now, you will see in this diagram, 10% of what is going from the brain to the gut, just 10% of the messages go from brain to gut. The largest percentage of messages, 90%, goes gut, brain. Okay. Where does, just a quick reminder, a little bit of a catch up and a summary for those who feel like most people a little bit confused when it comes to the nervous system. Where does the autonomic system fit into your nervous system? So you've got the central nervous system, brain, spinal cord, peripheral nervous system, somatic nervous system. Pick up the glass of water. Okay, make a decision. I pick it up. Okay. Autonomic nervous system. As all these things are happening, what the hell was that? I saw someone. Okay, now I have a feeling. This is what's happening with the autonomic nervous system. Everyone with me? Okay. Is the pace all right? Good. So your autonomic nervous system has sympathetic and parasympathetic. In very simple terms, parasympathetic, rest and recovery. Sympathetic, fight and flight. When I go into some of the emotional stuff in the psychological part, you'll see it's not as simple. We sometimes oversimplify it, like Descartes, mind, body. Oh, okay, but it's a start. What we know, if we look at health, those systems need to be in balance. When we get the start of illness is when those systems are out of balance. When we get autoimmune illness and a lot of chronic illnesses is when the sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive and the parasympathetic system doesn't help us to rest, heal, and recover. So it's the autonomic nervous system, and you can feel it on your stomach. When you get a fright, your blood vessels to the stomach will constrict, and it will send blood to your limbs. Part of our evolution when we still had lions running around. So if something like that happens, maybe it happens in Etosha and you're mad enough to get out of your car, and then suddenly you have to run. And so the blood will be diverted, and you'll have that feeling on your tummy, telling you, bloody hell, something is happening. So all of this happens, and the autonomic system, it kicks in, and it doesn't require a lot of thinking. And without telling you, you know if there's a lion coming and there's no blood going to the stomach now, and it will get all the blood to the muscles, that will have an effect on your pulse, blood pressure. Digestion will slow down and so forth. And then so roughly, and here it gets a little bit more complicated. It's not just, if we talk about the autonomic nervous system, not just sympathetic and parasympathetic, but also the enteric nervous system. Has anyone heard of that? Okay, this is what is happening in your gut. Sometimes they say you have your brain in your gut. People have heard that? Okay, or a second brain in the gut. Okay, don't worry if it looks complicated. I just want to show that the parasympathetic nervous system, the two main players is the vagus nerve and the enteric nervous system. And the enteric nervous system, it sits in your gut, and it, in a similar way that your body responds when the lion is coming, it responds to your diet. If you can remember it a little bit like that. And all of that, thank God, is happening without you having to think about it. This slide, again, brings the link between gut and autoimmune illness. So what we know, I mean, writing is quite small at the top, but stress, infections, a diet that is maybe not that healthy, medication doctors are dishing out, all of that can affect the barrier that keeps the outside and what is happening in your bloodstream separate. They can sometimes, if the gut, the inner lining of the gut get exposed to too much, that barrier, like your skin is a barrier that protects the rest of your body. If there's a cut, a bug from your skin can go in and cause a cellulitis or infection. In a similar way, if the inner environment of the gut, and remember, even stress and things can make more acid in the tummy. So toxins, medication, stress, all of that can lead to a breakdown of the barrier that what keeps what is not part of us outside and inside. And then you get things that people call like a leaky gut and so forth. And so what is not normally exposed to the blood then get exposed, and this is what confuses the immune system. So that's maybe a slightly different way of talking about it. Why do some people get autoimmune disease and other people not? Some people seem to be more prone to it. Now, again, it's complicated, but there is some research suggesting, especially if I look around the audience, there's a lot of European descent. The plague, your genes that protected people to survive the plague, seems to have predisposed us all a little bit to autoimmune illness. So it's interesting. Sometimes one gene protects you, but it gives you a vulnerability for the other. So genetics also play a big part in how you react to a certain diet, certain food, certain infection, very individual. So, I mean, that's talking about the environmental factors, and then gut dysbiosis, your gut microbiome. When your gut is happy and there are healthy bugs in your tummy, we call it eubiosis. And when there's bugs that are not so good for your health, we call it gut dysbiosis. So all of that mix sort of plays in and make chances for autoimmune disorder higher. So I think this is just a slide to give you some of the links. So your immune system, especially if that barrier in the gut breaks down, then the immune system is like foreign, and it goes into overdrive. Okay. Your vagus nerve plays a role, and then hormones and blood. That is almost like the messengers to communicate between the brain and the gut. There's just one slide to talk about the gut dysbiosis, and I've recently, in the last week, I've had a patient, one or two patients I see from time to time. I mean, I'm just thinking about our own environment. Lots of E. coli. E. coli not just causing bladder infections, but causing gastroenteritis. I've just had a lady who's been extremely unwell in hospital with salmonella in a gut and an E. coli. And now, after that, she's had a gout flare, partly because she got dehydrated and she was on specific medication for blood pressure, which was very good. But I think you can see how the bugs and in that environment in your gut can contribute to ill health. It's complicated when it comes to what is happening in the gut. I don't understand it well enough, but I think for the purposes of tonight, there are good bugs and there are bad bugs. And we don't really understand the balance that you need with both. And we can't really say, just give more of the good ones and take the bad ones away. It's not always as easy as that. But what we know, some of the good bugs, how do they work? Can improve antioxidant, lipid metabolism, decrease gut inflammation, insulin sensitivity, body fat. So I think in that, you can see with the good bugs, and when your gut is healthy, you can see how a healthy gut can have an influence maybe on weight or possibility of diabetes and things like that. Okay. So when there are bugs, like I've mentioned a few, that the gut doesn't like and maybe leads to breakdown and this leaky barrier. Just to mention a few, I've just highlighted what we see from time to time in the hospital: Enterobacter, Clostridium, especially with a lot of antibiotic use, Clostridium difficile, We do see it here. A lot of bugs I don't know, but and we don't see a lot of, but those ones, the highlighted ones, definitely. So having a not so good environment in your tummy, what can it lead to? I mean, anything from mental health issues, autism, hypertension, diabetes can have an effect on your bone, osteoporosis, aging, infertility. I mean, the list is almost too long. I've just highlighted a few. I think it's just another slide to show how having certain bugs are now more and more being linked to specific medical conditions. Irritable bowel syndrome, asthma, type 1 diabetes. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, that's all right. Depression, anxiety, but there's a lot about neurodegenerative illnesses, mental health illnesses, and I think also where it comes to weight, either being underweight or overweight, that seems to things that are very important. Again, I think if you, it's like a little bit like Alice in Wonderland. You go down the rabbit hole when you start reading about all the bugs and things that are in play. But I think other diseases that are clearly affected by our gut microbiome, Graves, Hashimoto's, I see a lot of it. Type 1 diabetes, Sjogren's, dry eyes and mouth, celiac, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. Lots of new diagnoses I've seen in the last year or two, and then even multiple sclerosis. So the gut, I hope I have convinced you, is very important. And it's not just to do with gut diseases. It affects other parts of the body. I get the question, why is there so much autoimmune disease? Is there more autoimmune disease now that there's been COVID? We know our own databases are not good. I don't even know if we keep a lot, but if you go to big countries like, say, Germany or in Europe, where they've had millions of patients who've had COVID, and they can look at incidence of certain illnesses, and they can look at before COVID and they can look after COVID, and there does seem to be an increase. Now, if you go back to that slide I've had where there's stress, infections, toxins, and drugs, and then that breaks down the barrier between the gut and the blood, and it activates your immune system. I think so. What has happened with COVID is there is a this is why they call it novel. So we're very familiar with coronaviruses; they're all around. But this was a coronavirus never seen and experienced by humans. And so the body had no defenses to it. So it's something like seeing maybe an alien. Maybe you can think in the night. Alien is coming in to your house and now you will react. So the body's immune system went into overdrive. And so if you have a genetic predisposition, maybe you have a gut that is not that healthy, maybe you are old, maybe you're a bit overweight, you have other chronic illnesses, that is a perfect sort of storm to give you very severe COVID. And we're also seeing that that group of patients suffer a bit more with long COVID and post-COVID syndrome. I think that is saying more or less the same. Good news from an autoimmune illness point of view, I have not lost an autoimmune patient during COVID. The groups where we've unfortunately lost people, I think a lot of overweight people and people who've had diabetes, they were very vulnerable, I would say, through COVID. So it's interesting to say, one might take an argument and say, maybe we've not tested for it, but what was happening in those people's guts? Important thing also to say, with the obesity pandemic we're seeing, we don't know if obesity affect your gut and then give you dysbiosis, or if you already have a gut that is not so healthy and that contributes to overweight. So we're very, very quick to judge, not moving enough, not eating well. I can tell you no person, very few people um, will just let themselves go, so to speak. And what is happening with obesity, and 40% of Americans are obese, not just overweight, obese. So there's something happening in our environment that is contributing to obesity. It's not just people not wanting to be healthy. Okay, that was gut brain axis. I'm going to go from my one friend, the psychologist. Have you heard of Prof. Stephen Porges? No, okay. So I think he's a psychologist. He's got a PhD, and you will read there, and this is from the University of North Carolina, and he will say his research is on behavioral neurosciences, and he's looking at the relationship between autonomic nervous system, social behavior, and normal and psychiatric populations. So there's something called the polyvagal theory. Hands up. Who's heard about that? Okay. So what it does, it's a framework to think about what psychologists are seeing and trying to understand things better, but they use a medical model. But clearly, I mean, the focus of the psychologists will much more be on behavior and emotions and so forth. So polyvagal theory, it says that we need to take notice of what is happening when we're under threat, because a lot of things are happening. So it's trying to unpick a little bit what is happening when you feel things in your gut. Will it either be for happiness, or you feel in danger or under threat? Polyvagus, poly meaning many, vagus meaning wandering. And if you, maybe it's good to say about the vagus nerve, it's the cranial nerve 10, and it goes from the brainstem to the colon. It's one of the longest nerves in the body. So what the polyvagal theory is talking about is that we need to be aware of what is happening when the body is feeling safe. How can we get more of that? And that the body is calm, because that is good for our health. And what is happening when the body is under stress? And also, sometimes we get stuck in a feeling that we're still stressed, even though we have left work and thinking about doctors, and you're thinking about something that has happened, or you're fighting with, but actually you're not at work anymore. But that system of yours, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic system, is out of balance. So I think this theory is saying there's constant communication between these two systems. And when you're healthy, those systems seem to be flexible and moving and adjusting and in balance. But when there's danger, I think of extreme circumstances. When I worked in England, I would sometimes see a few patients who've come back from war, and they suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder. And for them, sometimes it feels like being there is real. They can have a loud sound or a light, and bang, it will take them back to the battlefield. And for them, their systems are totally out of control, and they suffer because of that psychological problems. They suffer more with physical illness. So I think that's an extreme example. Now, this is something new. With a polyvagal theory, they look at the vagus nerve, and they say, if we look at the vagus nerve itself, it's not just parasympathetic and sympathetic. The vagus nerve also has a ventral and a dorsal part, because they also realize, yes, your vagus nerve is important to have you, chill a little bit. I was thinking, I was making a joke when they were talking earlier with the introduction about different things one can do. And I said, oh, what about singing and dancing? So singing and dancing, I mean, why do we feel relaxed? Let's take singing or humming. This is, in a way, what a smoker sometimes does as well. You breathe in, you hold your breath for a bit, and then you breathe out. Say, when you're singing, think of what a smoker is doing. Why, despite the nicotine, they sometimes find it relaxing. By Taking a breath in, holding it, breathing out slowly. What you're doing by that is you are activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So this is what you're doing when you're singing as well. This is what they're teaching SAS, you can say soldiers, when they in a combat or a very stressful situation. I mean, it's a simplified version, but breathe in for 4 seconds, hold the breath for 4 seconds, breathe out. And it sometimes just helps you in a very stressful moment not to get lost in the emotion. So I think when we talk about the vagus nerve, you have your dorsal part and ventral part. Now, the part that makes you relax and make you feel calm when you sing, for instance, or you do yoga or something like that, that is the ventral part. And the interesting thing is it's up more in the anterior chest. Then, now, according to this theory, the dorsal part goes lower down the diaphragm. And so when things get really tough and you feel, oh my God, am I going to survive this? I'm going to die. Then that nervous system kicks in and it's below the diaphragm. And that's when you start feeling it under in your gut, so to speak. So talked a little bit about the ventral vagal. It's fast. It's a sort of newer part, you can say, from evolution point of view. The dorsal vagal part is almost the instinctive. It's the reflex part when you're exposed to things. And I just want to show you. So maybe I go one forward so you can have a little bit of a feel of it. So the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, but with this theory, what they do is they divide the parasympathetic not just into the part that makes you feel relaxed, you singing, you dancing, and things like that. They also say you can go into a state that might look relaxed, but you're actually almost dead. Like, say, when an animal is more, say, like a little springbok is almost eaten by a lion. Sometimes you will say that certain animals, they play dead. Now, that is not a super relaxed state. It means the system is so overwhelmed that you think your only way of surviving is by playing dead, and maybe, the animal also will just lose interest. So I think in simple terms, we think parasympathetic, rest, relax, recover, sympathetic, fight and flight. But with this polyvagal theory, there's something about this collapse when you're almost not reacting. And this is really, and psychologically, I think maybe we can also see it, because I think all different disciplines, we see patients that are in a state where they may be extremely stressed. And you can sometimes see this, maybe people are not responding a lot, they looked a bit zoned out or dissociated, maybe some of the terms the psychologists will talk about. So when what the polyvagal theory is telling us is that this is a good state, being calm, being relaxed, a little bit maybe what you are feeling like. Maybe me, I'm also in that state, maybe a little bit more adrenaline, but balanced. But we're not fight and flight, and we're also not in this almost not responding state. And that we should be aware of these different states because we want to help our clients get more into the sort of ventral vagal state. Now, I'm just going to go one back so I can tell you a little bit. So the green system, this is when you feel you're amongst friends, you're calm, confident, and it is not only good for your mind, but it's also good for your body. Heart rate goes down, blood pressure not too high. Then when you, let's say, in war, God forbid, there's war all over the world nowadays, someone is shooting at you, you will be overwhelmed. You might even go into collapse. Emotions will be very hard to contain, despair, hopelessness, and you might try and cope and especially like with the post-traumatic clients of mine in England who've been to the war, then the emotions are in that state so overwhelming that people sometimes cope. A common thing is just by drinking alcohol because it just takes away the emotion. So I think as different medical professionals, what we can do is we can identify these states, and there are different ways in which we can help our patients not being stuck in one of them. Because sometimes you need to relax more. Sometimes you need to go over into action. You know, maybe a child walking over the road, there's a car coming, you know, then you need to be proactive. But need to be flexible, and having that sort of adaptability is a very important sign of health. Okay, not too long now. So I think we've touched a bit on this. The therapists help the patient to expand their window of tolerance, to understand what is happening in the body, to not just be reactive, and to have ways of coming back to a sense of calm. Psychological tools that can help with this is being more self-aware of what is happening for you, and also what is happening in your environment. Okay, I'm not going to touch on it. We're getting to the last bit. So I think if you look at health, have a look at this website, Global Wellness Institute. It's wonderful. I think if we look at health, it's not just about the body. It's about the mind. It's about diet. I've not touched on spirit, but I think there's a greeting that sometimes greet people and say, welcome, and you welcome. It doesn't matter what is the God of your understanding or something like that. So, or even if you don't believe in a God, that's also good. But we have a spiritual side to it, to ourselves. And it's important that we're aware of that as well. We said emotional, social community, even professional communities like this, very, very important. This is just a little bit of tips from myself, and we're almost on the last slide, about staying healthy, maybe quick little quirky things that I use in my own life. I always say a doctor needs to take the same medicine I'm dishing out to the patients, isn't it? But I think from a mental point of view, things that takes you, the modern human being is obsessed with the self, either in a way that you see in an extreme sense. I hope this is not going out to America, say with Trump, where you feel, I am so good, I am so great, my country is so great, there is no end to it. Then on the other hand, you can people say, life is terrible, I am so bad, I can do nothing. There's an obsession with the self that is unhealthy. So things like hobbies, nature, pets, it takes you out of yourself. You become less important. If they say that person is full of themselves, it's not a compliment. So things that takes you out of yourself. I think it doesn't need to be yoga and meditation. It can just being aware of yourself. What's happening in my body? You know? Sometimes I have patients, they come in with me, they can't work, they struggle to walk. Then they say, doctor, I have a little bit of a headache. Then I'm saying, you have a migraine, you can't stand up straight, you've just vomited. So just be the body sends us signals, and if we ignore it, we get unwell. So if yoga meditation is not for you, not a problem. Just become a little bit aware of my body. What is happening? My feet, how am I feeling today? Is there pains, is there aches? Physical activity and diet, singing, dancing, chanting. We don't do a lot in Namibia. I'm a great promoter of it. Gardening. It doesn't have to be cold water. Swimming, it can be a cold shower. We get so used to just being comfortable. We need that flexibility between the parasympathetic and sympathetic, almost like a boxer. You know, you can't be like this, and now you want to win a match or even impress someone. You know, you need to be flexible. You need to be on your feet. You'll be against the ropes. Yeah, keep moving. Cook at home. Yeah. I'm not a doctor that believe in any extremes. Time restricted fasting, I think, is something that I'm buying into. getting your body to know there's times that we eat and not eat, not like a cow grazing a little bit the whole day. You know, maybe say I eat my evening meal and then I stop. Not like 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, a little snack before I go to bed. Now, something else I've read recently about that I'm using as well. We've been counting the wrong thing, calories, and it's so complicated. Goes out the window, it doesn't really work. Look, everyone is getting fatter. Count the amount, it's going to be difficult for Namibians. Count the amount of vegetables you're eating. So it's looking at, you have the stick, which is more like calorie counting, and now you have a carrot. If you get to 15 or 20, I'm sure you'll be in the Olympics for Namibia, where we eat a lot of meat. Beans, we don't even eat enough beans. Fiber, very important for gut health. It also helps to regulate our glucose levels. Whole grain, water. We lose compared to warm countries that are say maybe a little bit more humid or don't have the extremes of heat, we lose a lot of water in Namibia, and all of us turning into little biltongs a little bit. So drink enough water, have it nearby. When you're feeling thirsty, you're already dehydrated, shouldn't get to it. Don't use anything processed, little sugar, and there's exciting things happening with fermented food. If you think pickles and so forth, a lot of what they eat in the Mediterranean diet, especially before a meal, also to regulate the glucose levels. All right. So I think, even though I'm a doctor, I'm moving away from the old medical way of looking at things. I am not someone who will go betting, but I think we can't, in time, we will not be able to afford to get unwell because we will not be able to afford the medication and the cost and the finances. It's not sustainable. So we have to go more preventative. And I hope that, you know, the talk has given you a few tips on how to do this. This is the last slide. I think it says a little bit about my own philosophy. The Dalai Lama, love him or hate him, doesn't matter. They asked him what surprised him most about humanity. And he said, man. And the long and short is because he sacrifices his health to make money. Now, then he has money, but he's unwell. So he needs to use the money to get his health back. Then he gets anxious about the future and he doesn't live in the present. So in the end, he comes to dying, but he's not really lived. So I think that was a little bit of a sprint through a very complex topic. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for your attention, and I'll answer some questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Juline. Before I thank you properly, are there any questions for Juline? Anybody who would like to have some clarification or ask something? Yeah, there's the water. Nothing?
Minute or two, if there's anything, but I'm just saying that your genes are complex, and the genes that protects you in one way can make you, that specific sequence and combination can make you a little bit vulnerable. But we don't know enough so that you can take certain genes out and you say, okay, this gene, let's say for instance, a cancer gene. Now you say, I don't want to get breast cancer, so I remove the BRCA gene. But maybe the BRCA gene made you more susceptible to breast cancer or ovarian cancer, but it's also protected you against something else. So if you take it away, it's not always as easy. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, yeah, and we're learning more. But I would say we are stronger, your evolution and your genetic makeup is stronger than if you go back many years ago, say like with the plague, because you're here today. I mean, things are a bit more complex, and we have other factors impacting on our life: stress, diet, and pollution, you know, like that people didn't have, and that's where our challenge is going to be.
Hold on. Juline, thank you so much for giving up your precious time. And I know your practice is very busy, and for sharing all this knowledge. I hope it has planted a little seed in most of our minds to start thinking a little bit further. Thank you so much. A little token of our appreciation. I forgot something as housekeeping. We have to fill in an attendance register. Tanya, can you just take this, please? Please fill it in. The CPD desk always wants to see that as well, just for proof of people in attendance. I will take a little bit of stock of who's on Zoom just now, right? That I have that as well. All right. Let me grab my other paper. Now, our next speaker is Stephanie Grosvenor, and I'm just going to say something a little bit about you. I've just recently met Stephanie, and it has been absolutely wonderful and so insightful in many ways. I had a consultation with her this morning, which was very special for me to actually be sitting on the other side of the table and get some advice, because you're your own worst doctor most of the time. So Stephanie is a nutritionist and a functional medicine health coach, specializing in working with high achieving, driven professionals to up-level their health so they can thrive with confidence in business and in relationships and all areas of their lives. She's also the co-founder and head formulator of Vitamin G nutraceuticals, and you can have a look at that later on when you have the snack break or after you, or when you want to leave. The Healthy Living Blueprint, and she's the host of the Global Wellness Summit, the Healthy Living Blueprint, that's right. Through her own 15-year battle against chronic health issues, Stephanie learned how to heal her body through holistic natural remedies and lifestyle changes, and she's going to share that with us now. So, Stephanie, please come up.
How's this? There we go. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for giving up or offering us up your time this evening. And I promise you that I'm going to do everything I can to make the next 30 minutes of this talk as valuable as and insightful as possible for you. Let me just quickly start my watch. Otherwise, I'm going to have you here for an hour. Oh, no, it's okay. I'll do it here. Thank you. Then it will beep when we're done. All right. So this evening, we're jumping into just beyond symptom management. Briefly, Dr. Olga did share a little bit about me, but a bit about my background. I'm a holistic nutritionist and functional medicine health coach. I'm the owner of Unlimited You Holistic Health Coaching, co-founder and formulator of Vitamin G nutraceuticals as well. And I got into this work, as Dr. Olga shared, through my own 15-year battle with chronic inflammation, chronic fatigue, obesity, IBS, Hashimoto's, just the list could go on and on and on. But eventually I did learn how to heal my body through holistic and natural remedies. At the moment, the two wrongs I'm trying to right in the world currently is how we've normalized living in this stress epidemic. Living in chronic stress is normal, and many of us are walking around far more stressed than we even realize. The second thing that the second wrong I'm trying to right in the world at the moment is the belief that we don't have any control over disease. It's one of these things that happen, and if it happens to us, it's because we're unlucky. And hopefully this evening, through the presentation, you are going to get some insights into just how much control we actually have over our disease outcomes. If you had said to me 15 years ago that I would be standing in a room full of health professionals explaining or talking about how to create health and heal your body, I would have thought that you were absolutely nuts because of the state of health that I was in, and everything that I was dealing with at the time. But when I was 24, I discovered functional medicine for the first time. From the state of health I was in, I had been looking for doctors, I had been looking for specialists, really going along the conventional route. It is all I knew. I was met with a lot of concern and a lot of comfort, if I could say, but not solutions. The solutions offered to me at the time were only in pharmaceutical pills, and something in me at the time did not feel right. Nobody could understand or explain to me where the IBS was coming from. Nobody could understand where necessarily the acne, the fatigue, the anxiety, all this sort of stuff was coming from. So the solutions offered to me at the time were things like Roaccutane, birth control, anti-anxiety medication, all these different things. And my fear was at the moment I would put myself onto a medication, I would, from a mental perspective, feel the need that I would be reliant on that for the rest of my life. And that scared me. So I took it into my own hands to find a solution. I wanted to understand why all these things were happening to my body for half of my life, for most of my life. And that is when, as I said, I discovered functional medicine and the role the gut microbiome plays in our health. The moment I started to fix my gut, heal my gut, understand my gut, everything changed for me. Absolutely everything. The weight fell off. I was almost 100 kilograms at one stage. The weight fell off. The anxiety went away. Dr. Juline has given an amazing presentation explaining a little bit about the connection between our gut and our mental health. And the moment I started working on my gut, my anxiety decreased. My IBS obviously went away, all these kinds of things. And I won't get into detail with it now, but when we look at the current model of medicine, which I am incredibly grateful for modern medicine and everything it affords us to do. But when we look at the current model of medicine, it is very focused on symptom and condition management. However, when we take a functional medicine approach to health and to healing, this is where we focus on root cause treatment. We look at condition reversal and on health optimization, because the absence of disease does not equal the presence of health. Just because you do not have a diagnosis does not mean you are healthy. And we want to help you get into a state of optimal health. We do this in functional medicine through looking at your genetics, looking at your lifestyle. What is your stress level? What are your current responsibilities? What is your health history? Did you have trauma in your life that was maybe the trigger for the development of certain conditions? We look at all these things. What is your diet? What is your movement? What is your sleep like? All of these things paired with your genetics can affect or can lead us to what the root cause is and help us to treat that. We do not want to focus on symptoms. We want to focus on root cause investigation and treatment, and move us from a space of thriving, from a space of surviving into a space of thriving. When we look at symptoms, symptoms are not something to suppress. They are a gift and something to listen to. And this is what often happens when we are just treating a symptom with a medication. We are suppressing it. We are masking the symptoms. We are not solving the problem. The symptom is not the problem. We need to ask, why do we have that symptom? Often we brush off the symptoms that we are experiencing for multiple reasons. You might be sitting here and at one point or another you've said, oh, it really sucks to get old because my memory is suffering, or my joints are a little bit more painful or sticky because I'm getting older. We brush off the reason why we are experiencing certain symptoms. Yes, I'm bloated, but I've been bloated my whole life. Yes, I only go to the bathroom once every 3 days, but it's been like that my whole life. So it doesn't really matter. It's just who I am. We brush off these symptoms. But symptoms are there it's not a sign of old age. They are your body's way of telling you that it needs help, that there is a problem. Think of symptoms like warning lights on your car's dashboard. It's asking for attention. The moment we have a light pop onto our dashboard, we are very fast to take it in or to fix the problem, because we know if we leave it untreated, unresolved, the problem's going to get worse. It's going to end up taking a lot more money to fix the car if the problem escalates. But we don't give the same attention to our body. Many people these days know more about how their car works than they do about how their body works, and are willing to invest more time and more money into looking after their car, servicing it regularly, than they are their bodies. So I encourage you to start looking at symptoms as warning lights. What does that mean? What is it telling us? And unfortunately, this is not something we are really taught from a young age. It is a skill we need to develop. Dr. Juline spoke about getting connected to your body. This is it. Start to connect your body in whatever way that is, so you can identify what those symptoms are and work with somebody if you need to help you interpret what it means. But let's start paying more attention to our symptoms. Now, symptoms and dis-ease come down to an interference or an imbalance in 3 core body systems. We're going to simplify health and the human body tonight. Every single person in here knows that the human body is the most complex thing on the planet. But we are going to simplify things for you this evening. And any symptom or dis-ease comes down to an imbalance or an interference in your 3 core body systems. Whether this is bloating or ulcerative colitis, whether this is high blood pressure or Hashimoto's, whether it is diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis, headaches, whatever it is, insomnia, comes down to an imbalance or an interference in these 3 systems. These systems are your gut and digestive system, your liver and detoxification system, and your immune system and inflammation level. Everything in the body is impacted by these 3 systems. The body was made to heal itself, and if that is not happening, we need to ask why. If we cut our finger, we know that the body sends a flood of inflammation to that area, to that injured part, to protect it while it is healing. But we don't rush to doctors. We maybe clean it a little bit, but we don't rush out and take a bunch of pills and powders and supplements and all these different things to help it heal or to fix the problem. We leave it. We clean it, we leave it, we get out of its way, and eventually after a few days, it will heal itself. Our body has an innate ability to do that. The same thing that's happening in your finger is happening in your gut, it's happening in your thyroid, it's happening in your liver. It's supposed to. So if this innate ability, if this process is not happening, we need to ask why. What are we doing subconsciously or unconsciously to interfere with this process? We're not doing it on purpose. It comes down, though, to our choices, our lifestyle, and the environment that we are living in. So if we are looking at these 3 core systems, and I'm standing here in front of you saying that everything, every symptom, every disease comes down to these 3 systems. How are they connected? What is the connection between these and illness or disease or symptoms? So when we look, we have to first look at the gut microbiome. Hippocrates said many, many thousands of years ago that all disease begins in the gut. And this is why all healing needs to take place there too. So starting off with the gut microbiome, you may hear some repetitive information this evening. Dr. Juline shared some wonderful stuff about the gut earlier. So bear with me if I'm repeating, but hopefully it's just cementing these concepts for you if you are not familiar with them already. But out of interest's sake, who here knows a lot about the gut microbiome or takes that into consideration? I don't know what the right question is. Who focuses on the gut here? Gut health. A few of you. Fantastic. All right, when we look at your gut, just briefly, there's so much I can say about it, but some core things that we need to understand is that it's a collection of approximately 40 trillion different organisms. This is made up of bacteria, viruses, yeast, fungi, a variety of different organisms. We have more bacteria in us and on us than we do cells that make us human, which is incredible. The fact that we have this much bacteria around us is a clear sign that we need to be paying attention and we need to understand it better. I always joke that we are just talking very advanced pieces of bacteria. That's basically really what we are. Now, 70% of your immune system lives in your gut, in what is called the GALT tissue, the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. And it makes sense that 70% of our immune system lives there. It's not something that a lot of people realize, but as Dr. Juline was sharing, our gut microbiome is basically still the outside world. It's the outside world coming in, and the first line of defense we have against anything we take in, our food, our water, our whatever it is, our first line of defense is your immune system around the gut. It needs to tackle any pathogen or any invader, any enemy coming in before it gets deep into the bloodstream, into your body, further into your body to cause damage or to cause harm. So 70% of your immune system lives in your gut. This GALT tissue produces and stores immune cells and carries out attacks to defend against pathogens. The bacteria within your gut also train your immune system, especially during your early years, to distinguish between harmful invaders and harmless substances. What is friend and what is foe? Your gut bacteria is also responsible. When I say bacteria, I should talk more about or what we would call commensal bacteria, your healthy, your bacteria that actually provides benefits for us, because we do have a variety of bacteria within our system. Some is commensal, some is very supportive, and some can create negative effects and symptoms for us, which I'll get into with you in a minute. Dr. Juline did share about gut dysbiosis. So this, if we could call it good bacteria or commensal bacteria, is responsible for producing a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals, a lot of hormones, even neurotransmitters. So things like serotonin, our happy hormone, up to 90% of our serotonin is produced in the gut. So if you find somebody who is, and depression is, there's multiple aspects to depression, so I'm not trying to oversimplify things, but let's take depression, for example. If you are seeing a patient that has very low levels of serotonin, the solution is not always just an SSRI. Put the bacteria back into the gut that produces the serotonin, and all of a sudden we have a different result. Again, not trying to oversimplify it, but these are things we need to take into consideration. GABA, which is your calming hormone, that is largely produced in the gut. About 50 to 60% of your GABA is produced in the gut. If we don't have enough good bacteria to create the GABA, we are going to struggle to manage our anxiety levels. We're going to, the moment somebody drops a fork on the floor, we're going to lose our minds because we've got nothing to regulate that response anymore. So we need to pay attention to making sure we have a healthy gut microbiome so that it can be, continue to produce these neurotransmitters, these hormones, these vitamins. We know at the moment the whole world is losing their mind over Ozempic and GLP-1 therapies, unfortunately. But when you have a healthy gut microbiome, we naturally produce GLP-1. It is responsible largely, as Dr. Juline shared, largely our gut is involved in regulating our metabolism or influencing our metabolism and our metabolic health. So the moment you find somebody or a patient that has metabolic syndrome, your gut is still a place that we need to look at. This is, again, just a repeat of what Dr. Juline has shared, but another image of a condition that I really wanted to bring to your attention tonight, besides dysbiosis, that imbalance of bacteria, is what we would call leaky gut or gut permeability. Now, this is a condition that research is showing 70% of adults are living with to one degree or another. That is an insane statistic for a condition that did not exist 50 years ago. So we have to start asking why. What is the problem? What is happening here? What is causing this? We need to pay attention to it because we see the increase in leaky gut, we're seeing the increase in autoimmune conditions, we're seeing the same increase in chronic disease, so we need to start looking at the root cause. Now, with leaky gut, what you can see, as Dr. Juline shared, we have these tight junctions. Your colon is only one cell layer thick. It's actually very, very, very thin. And the only thing that's supposed to be getting through is vitamins, minerals, all the stuff that the body needs. Now, what is happening is these tight junctions start to separate, and there's these big gashes in your colon. they become permeable, it becomes leaky. Now, on the other side of your gut lining, as you can see here, is your immune system, as I have just shared. When you are having, with these big gashes, now all of a sudden undigested pieces of food are getting through. Things that are supposed to be eliminated through our stools or our urine are getting through into our bloodstream, and that is triggering your immune system to create inflammation and an attack. Your immune system is to protect you from invaders. Now, every day, through every snack, every drink, every meal you have, you are getting invaders entering your body, entering your bloodstream. And your immune system is now on overdrive. Through this leaky gut, you've got pathogens, you've got toxins, you've got undigested pieces of food, as I said, you've got your enterotoxins, just toxins that are created within the gut due to normal metabolic processes. Instead of them being eliminated, they're now entering into your bloodstream. So as you can see, this then leads to systemic inflammation, because 24 hours a day, there's inflammation being created within the body due to this. It leads to a break in the blood-brain barrier as well. Just as our colon lining starts to separate and become permeable, when that starts to happen, the same thing starts to happen in the brain, and we call it a breach in the blood-brain barrier, or leaky brain for short. Now, picture this. You've got toxins that are supposed to get removed in your stools, leaking into your bloodstream, traveling through your bloodstream, getting into your brain, and now crossing the blood-brain barrier and getting stuck in your tissues. Now we wonder why brain fog is so big. Cloudiness. Has anybody here experienced brain fog or familiar with it? Yes, your memory's not bad because you're getting old or because you got a lot on your plate. It could be that there's this presence of leaky brain or brain fog that's happening. No wonder there's an increase in brain fog. No wonder there's an increase in anxiety. No wonder there's an increase in mood disorders or low moods, because I'm also going to be really anxious and really angry and in a bad mood most of the time if I've got toxins sitting in my brain tissue. Like, we've got to get rid of that, guys. So this is something that's happening with in your gut as well. And then food intolerances. Every time you are eating something and this is escaping through leaky gut, you will see an increase in your food food sensitivities or food intolerances, because your gut, your immune system, is now seeing this invader and creating, whether it's antibodies or inflammation, some kind of defense against it. And this is why you might notice that you are more sensitive to foods, to a lot more foods now than what you were 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. And all of a sudden, I can't eat chickpeas. And then a few months later, now I can't eat nuts. A few months later, now I can't eat rice or spinach. It can be healthy foods. It's because those enzymes, those particles are getting into your bloodstream, and your immune system is unfortunately creating a response to it. Now, every time you eat that food, your body is going to have a reaction. So food sensitivities, increasing food sensitivities, is a very clear sign of leaky gut. And then lastly, you've got your obviously nutrient malabsorption, and then autoimmune conditions that Dr. Juline also touched on. You can just think through this process a little bit. If we have food and toxins escaping, triggering our immune system to create systemic inflammation 24 hours a day, if almost, your immune system doesn't rest. It goes onto overdrive. The only role, the only job our immune system has is to keep us alive. Now, if I had to ask you to do one job only for about 5 days, you don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't rest, you don't close your eyes, you do absolutely nothing but that one job for 5 days. Then I come to you and I try to have a conversation with you. You're not going to be able to string a sentence together. You are going to be so exhausted. You're not going to understand what I'm saying, and you're not going to be able to get your words out. If you had to jump in a car and try drive, if you could even get it started, you're going to crash because you can't comprehend what is happening. You are exhausted. You cannot function properly. And this is what's happening with our immune system. Autoimmune conditions can start 10, 15, even 20 years before you get a diagnosis. The problem can start internally. Now imagine you have this chronic systemic inflammation running rampage. Your immune system is in overdrive all day long. It is going to be exhausted, my friends. It's not after 5 days, it's after 5 years. It's going to get confused. It's going to lose its ability to turn the inflammation switch off. It is going to get confused between what is friend and what is foe. It's in attack mode. It's gone to war. And now it's attacking everything in its path. But if we give it, and I think I'm actually skipping ahead on my slides here, but if we give it a minute to calm down, to settle, to rest, it will regain its ability to turn off that inflammation and start to identify what is friend and what is foe. One of the ways how this is now contributing to autoimmunity. If we can heal that leaky gut, we stop the toxins leaking in, we stop the inflammation or the driver of inflammation with every single meal that we eat, and that gives our immune system a chance to calm down. This is something I really wanted to mention because we're seeing a massive increase in Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, and just thyroid conditions in general. Now, when we look at leaky gut and these undigested pieces of food or whatever the case is leaking into the system, who here is familiar with molecular mimicry? Couple of you, fantastic. So what this means, and it's very particular when it comes to gluten and the thyroid, the protein in gluten, which is gliadin, is molecularly is very, very similar to our thyroid tissue. So what is happening is you are eating gluten, somebody is eating gluten, and this is escaping into the bloodstream. Your immune system is creating antibodies against it, these little bullets to try fight the gluten. And these antibodies are traveling through your bloodstream, trying to get hold of the gluten, and it passes your thyroid and it thinks that's gluten and it starts to attack. This is why if you are somebody who is dealing with Hashimoto's or an autoimmune thyroid condition, it is incredibly important that one of your treatment methods is to remove gluten from your diet. Otherwise, you are not going to see a very big reduction in those antibodies. The same thing happens with dairy when it comes to rheumatoid arthritis, and you will see that rheumatoid factor increasing if you continue to have dairy in your diet. And again, this doesn't mean these things have to be taken out forever, but everybody is an individual. Some people can have dairy, some people can't. It depends on what you are dealing with. And sometimes we have to remove certain triggers initially during the initial treatment phase. Once the body is happy, once the body is healthy, we can bring these things back in. How am I doing on time here? Okay, let me speed this up a little bit. All right, so the inflammation fire. I've spoken about this already a little bit, but when we are looking at inflammation, how do I say this? There has to be a trigger for inflammation. The immune system doesn't just decide one morning, I'm going to create this. I always like to think of inflammation. I'm not going to go into what it is. You guys will know, being medical professionals, you know the ins and outs of inflammation, but we know it's good. We know we need it. And I like to generally describe it as little soldiers that the immune system sends out to defend us. So again, if we look at the example of cutting your finger, the moment you have that cut, it becomes very red, very painful, swollen, and inflamed. That is the soldiers sent to that area to protect it while the body heals itself, while the healing takes place. The moment that area of the body is healed, the inflammation goes away. The immune system says, come back, retreat, you soldiers are no longer needed. Now the problem, if the immune system is not doing this, if there is an invader, an infection, an irritation in the body, a threat in the body that is not removed, you will have constant inflammation. The immune system is responding to a threat, to something harmful in the body. Because again, its only job is to keep you safe, to keep you alive, not to keep you healthy. The immune system doesn't keep you healthy. It is there to keep you alive, and it will do whatever it has to accomplish that, regardless of how ill it makes you feel. So if the irritation or the threat in the body is not removed, you will have this constant systemic inflammation. Inflammation, as I said, is like a fire. Put anything close enough to a fire, it's going to get damaged. Hold your hand next to a fire or in front of a fire for long enough, it's going to get burnt, it's going to get hurt. And this is what happens within the body when we have systemic inflammation. You will see it starts to it may be being produced to protect a certain area or to fight a certain infection, but because it's been running 24 hours a day for the last 5 years or whatever the case is, it starts to damage surrounding organs, surrounding tissue, and the problem escalates. Now you don't just have one autoimmune condition, you have another, or you don't just have one problem, you have something else. But just like a fire needs three things to function. It needs fuel, it needs heat, it needs oxygen. Take any one of those things away, you kill the fire. And it's the same with the inflammation fire. It has to have an irritation, this invader irritation, this threat, whatever it is. Take the threat away, remove it, and the inflammation, the fire goes away. So we have to figure out what is the irritation, what is the threat, and that may be different for everybody. There might be multiple threats or multiple taps within the body that are causing your inflammation. But the thing is, we cannot have illness or dis-ease without first having high levels of inflammation. It has to be present. So any symptom or any disease, any illness that you are dealing with, we know there is something in the body or multiple aspects that we have to find. Put your little investigation like hat on, and let's go find what the source of the inflammation is. Inflammation is there, as I said, to protect us. It's happening for a reason. The solution is not to block the production of inflammation with over-the-counter anti-inflammatories or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. That is not the solution. The solution is to understand what is driving the inflammation and treat it. Now, one of the things with the use of NSAIDs or over-the-counter anti-inflammatories, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't use them. There is a time and a place and a reason for different kinds of medication. But what I've noticed, and I'm sure a lot of you can agree with me in your experience here, is that anti-inflammatories have become long-term use. People get onto them, they're using them maybe for months up to years. It's become a regular thing, whether it's pain or whatever somebody is dealing with. It's no longer generally being used short-term, maybe for a small little injury or to help you with pain in a certain situation. The thing is, when you are taking over-the-counter anti-inflammatories, again, it is not getting rid of the irritation. It is blocking the part within your cell that causes or that produces the inflammation. It works on the COX receptor. The thing is, it doesn't just it blocks COX-1 and COX-2. This is part of your cell that, yes, it produces inflammation, but it is also anti-inflammatory. It's sending anti-inflammatory messages out. So now you are blocking those receptors within the cell, and the anti-inflammatory messages are not getting sent out either. This is why what you will notice is the moment you start using anti-inflammatories long-term, you start to need more of them. It is your inflammation actually increases long-term. And I'm not talking, my friends, about using this for 5 to 10 days. I'm talking about using these for months. And you might realize, I used to just take one in the morning, and then now I must take one in the morning and the evening. Now one is not actually taking the pain away anymore. Now I need to take 2. Now the pain's only gone for about 3 or 4 hours. Now I need to take them at lunchtime again. We develop this reliance because, as I said, inflammation is a fire and it will spread. So if you are blocking that part of the cell, it's not a solution. The irritation is still there. The irritation is still driving inflammation. So we still need to figure out what that is. So let's look briefly at some key drivers of inflammation, because this can be an hour's talk on its own. But really briefly, you can take a picture of the screen if that helps you. But food is a massive, massive driver of inflammation, especially your seed oils, your vegetable oil, your sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil. The Heart Health Foundation really did a number on us with that one, trying to convince us that canola oil is healthy. So your seed oils are a huge driver of inflammation. Your processed foods, sugar, refined carbs, excess conventional raised meat, and things like this. I'm not saying that you need to eliminate this from your diet completely. In a perfect world, yes, but we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a real world. So just do what you can to minimize these things. I enjoy sugar on occasion. I enjoy processed foods on occasion, but that is not the everyday diet. We are a result of what we do 80% of the time. Your gut imbalances are driving inflammation, as Dr. Juline shared as well. So dysbiosis, SIBO, leaky gut, candida, these kinds of things are driving extreme inflammation within the body. Imbalance in your omega-3 to 6 ratio. We know the body needs omega-3s. Every single cell within the body needs omega-3s. We can only get that from food. And most of us are not eating pounds of salmon every single week. The omegas we get from, we would like to. The omegas we get from plant foods are also very different to the omegas we get from animal produce. We need all animal products. We need all of them, but your body will actually take the omegas we get from plants, your ALA omegas, and it will convert it into the form, the DHA and EPA that we need for the body to function. But we have to eat a heck of a lot of plants for that to happen. So an imbalance in these omega-3 to 6 ratio can be a massive driver for inflammation as well. Then hidden toxins, things like molds, parasite, bacteria, that is going to drive inflammation. Toxins, your silver fillings that a lot of people still have within your mouth, heavy metals, pesticides, and household chemicals or chemicals within our beauty products, massively driving inflammation. And then an excess or overuse of medications, being your antibiotics, sleeping pills, over-the-counter anti-inflammatories, antidepressants, and birth control. All these things as well can contribute to your inflammation. So lastly, the last system that we need to dive into is liver, and I'm running short on time here, liver and your detoxification system. A lot of people tend to think of the detox system as your liver and your kidneys. However, it is much more than that. Part of our detox system is your liver, your kidneys, your gut microbiome or your gut, and then your lymphatic system as well. So if we look, let's see if this pointer is working. Which one do I have here? Let's see. When we look at your liver and detox system, there are 3 phases to this. You have phase 1 and phase 2 that takes place in the liver, and phase 3 takes place in your gut microbiome. Phase 1 is heavily influenced by your genetics. Phase 2 and phase 3 is influenced by your lifestyle. So there are certain nutrients. Don't get too worried about this diagram, but there are different kinds of nutrients needed in every single phase of detoxification. The reason why this is so important is because we currently live in an incredibly toxic world. Research is showing that we are exposed to over 200 chemicals by the time we leave the house in the morning. And for most of us, we have to fight about 1,000 chemicals a day. And this might seem excessive to you, but if you think about it, you wake up in the morning, you have a shower, it's your body wash, you're brushing your teeth, you're putting deodorant, you're putting maybe perfume, you're putting moisturizer, you're putting, especially for women, mascara or foundation or whatever the case is. Then you go to the kitchen and you're making yourself a cup of coffee that's got pesticides and mold. Then you're making, maybe it's yogurt with blueberries that are heavily sprayed or whatever the case is. Then you've got your air freshener that's pumping out these Glade air fresheners like every 15 minutes. And it makes sense. You can start to see how you are exposed to so many chemicals. We now have over 2,000 chemicals in circulation that didn't even exist 40 years ago. So our body was not built to deal with the amount of toxicity we are living with right now. And I'm not trying to scare you. I want you to be aware of these things because we cannot get rid of all the toxins around us. We can do whatever we can to minimize the intake of them, but we need to now support our body to manage these toxins, to get rid of it, because our liver was not built to deal with the amount of toxins that it deals with at the moment. So it's trying really hard through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 detoxification to get rid of these toxins. Your liver will take toxins in. Most of the toxins we come into contact with are fat-soluble toxins. So your liver will take it in. It will work, it will conjugate it to turn them almost non-toxic or water-soluble so that we are able to eliminate it. But there are problems that we are coming into, that we are finding within the detox system that is leading to a high level of internal toxicity, toxins hidden in our organs, and impairing our ability to detox. So when we look at phase 1, let me see, do I have this? As I said, phase 1 is heavily impacted by your genetics. Who here is familiar with SNPs or singular nucleotide polymorphisms? A couple of you. All right. So SNPs or SNPs is it's got to do with your genetics. We cannot change our genes, but we can change how our genes express themselves. And these SNPs, these SNPs, are little mutations or little interferences with your genetics. They are interfering with certain regular body processes. One of the most common SNPs that we are finding, and I'm unfortunately somebody who has it as well, is the MTHFR gene mutation. This impairs your methylation, which contributes to energy production. We have to methylate nutrients in order for our mitochondria to create energy. But methylation is also incredibly important in protecting us. It helps us to turn on or activate disease protectant genes and to turn off, if I could say that, the disease enhancing genes. So we need to be paying attention to our methylation, but this MTHFR mutation really interferes with our genetic pathways as well. For example, this mutation can create a bit of a backup within the body. If you take a look at this door, 1 or 2 people can probably go through it at a time. Whereas if we open up this door over here, you can have 4 people coming through at the same time. That door represents a healthy person's detox pathways. Our liver can let in a lot of toxins and process a lot of toxins at once. This door represents somebody with MTHFR mutation or impaired detox pathways. Your liver can only process a couple I say a couple, but it can only process less toxins. This creates a bottleneck. The liver now says, all right, what do I do with all this excess of toxins? How am I going to protect the body from this? So the fat-soluble toxins, it stores in your fat cells, away from your vital organs. The more toxins in the fat cell, the bigger they expand. The more our fat cells expand, the more we expand. This is why you can be eating very healthy, you can be exercising, but if you are not pulling those toxins out of your fat cells and processing them, you will see that a lot of people are struggling to lose weight, because it's not always just about calories in or calories out. It's not just about the food you are eating, but how much toxicity are you actually carrying around within your cells. So we need to pay attention to our methylation, and our detox pathways, support our detox pathways. Your water-soluble toxins will be stored within your joints, and this is where you start to feel a bit of stiffness, a bit of irritation in the joints, because now you've got toxins stored in your knees. Now your immune system's sending inflammation there to protect that area, because it is a high toxic, a volatile area. We are experiencing inflammation, we're experiencing pain, we're experiencing all these kinds of things. It's not because we're getting older. Maybe we have just had more time to collect more toxins within our body. So we want to support our detox pathways. CYP450 is another issue that we are seeing a lot of, and this relates to your enzymes and conjugation. So this is why supplementation with things like glutathione or NAC can be really helpful, because what that's doing is basically giving your liver a helping hand, saying, I'm going to process these toxins for you so you don't have to. We are sorting out this bottleneck that is happening within the body. The liver then doesn't have to store any more toxins, and I can start processing on the spot with glutathione. And then lastly, our CompT. Anybody familiar with CompT? Fantastic. Okay, this is something I have to mention. I know I'm going over time now, but we have to bring this up, because a lot of people with a methylation issue, with the MTHFR gene mutation, they will also have an issue with their CompT gene. Now, what this does is it actually compromises your liver's ability, your body's ability to detoxify estrogen. We know that infertility, the reason I'm bringing it up is because every single person in this room knows somebody or has been affected by somebody or by cancer or infertility, whether it's yourself, a family member, a friend, a cousin, whatever it is. We all know somebody who's dealt with one of these two things. And estrogen dominance plays a very big role in both of these conditions. So what happens is the body produces estrogen, it needs estrogen. Estrogen is a messenger. But once that message has been delivered, we got to get rid of the messenger. Otherwise, it's going to cause a bit of chaos. If I got to blow my nose, I'm grateful. I've got a tissue, I use the tissue, but then I've used it, I have to get rid of it. We can't just have a bunch of tissues laying everywhere. And this is what has to happen with the estrogen once it has been used within the body. But what is happening is that when we have an issue with your CompT gene within the liver, just to sort of simplify this process, the liver will package up the estrogen, tag it for elimination, and send it into your gut microbiome or into your gut to be eliminated. A healthy gut will eliminate this estrogen. But what happens when we have this dysbiosis, there's some of this bad bacteria, if I call it bad bacteria within the gut, will then create something called beta-glucuronidase, an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. What this enzyme does is it snips off that tag that says this is supposed to be eliminated, and it unravels the estrogen, and that then gets sent back into the body to be recirculated, causing estrogen dominance. And we know when we look at things like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, even colon cancer. High levels of beta-glucuronidase have a very strong link to colon cancer. We know when we've got high levels of beta-glucuronidase, high levels of estrogen, these are our core biomarkers that we find in people dealing with estrogen, with cancer, with breast cancer, with ovarian cancer, as well as infertility conditions such as PCOS. Estrogen dominance is one of the root causes. Endometriosis, estrogen dominance is present. So these are things that we need to start paying attention to and looking at as possible root causes for these different conditions. Lastly, nutrient deficiencies. These are the most common nutrient deficiencies that we see today, and it's something we need to pick up on. I've spoken about the 3 core systems, but the 4th thing we need to bring into consideration when working with clients, when working with patients, when trying to optimize our own health is nutrient deficiencies. We know 70% of the population is deficient in magnesium. There is a typo there, guys. Magnesium is needed for over 300, not 3,000, over 300 chemical reactions that take place within the body every minute. If you do not have enough magnesium, that is 300 functions that are compromised. Second of all is vitamin D. 85% of the population is deficient in vitamin D. And you might think because we live so far south down here that that's not a problem for us, but most of us are spending our time indoors, not enough time outside. So vitamin D, to this day, I'm yet to see one client that has optimal levels of vitamin D. And optimal levels is not 20 or 30 if you've had your blood work done. Optimal levels is around about 80. You want to be 50 to 80 on your blood work. Next is omega-3s. 95% of the population is deficient in omega-3s. That's needed for every single cell within the body. And then B vitamins, your methylated B vitamins. I can't get into that now, but I did mention methylation and the MTHFR mutation. 46% of the population has the MTHFR gene SNP. That's 46% of the population that can't methylate, that's tired, that needs the assistance of methylated B vitamins. So if you are taking any multivitamin or B complex, you want to make sure it is already methylated. It is in the methylated form. This will bring down inflammation as well. So what can be done? Also, snap a picture of that because I'm going to run through it really fast. But you want to follow an anti-inflammatory diet, which means eating the rainbow, eating a lot of color, your 30 whole foods a week, as Dr. Juline shared. You want a high protein, moderate fat, lower carb diet. There is no one size fits all diet for everybody. That is a general guideline. Whether that protein is animal source or other, it doesn't matter, but you want to be bringing a lot of good, healthy protein into your diet, moderate fat, and then getting your carbs from healthy carbs from your fruits and your vegetables, not necessarily your processed things like pasta and that kind of stuff. Prioritize your sleep and implement good sleep hygiene. So important. If anybody is treating a patient and is not talking about sleep, we are doing our patients a disservice. If we had to look at the pyramid of what's most important or most beneficial or most impactful, most to least, I would put I would put sleep above nutrition. It is the first thing I would work with people on. If you are not getting enough sleep or quality sleep, it's not just about the time you're sleeping, but what is the quality of your sleep? Your body detoxifies while you sleep. Your hormones start to replenish and rebalance while you are sleeping. Your brain detoxifies. We get rid of all that amyloid plaque at night while we are sleeping. We cannot underestimate the importance of sleep. Intermittent fasting, if it is safe for you to do so, is absolutely incredible for your gut health, for inflammation. If you are somebody with incredibly high stress, if you are living your life in your sympathetic nervous system, you do not want to be implementing a lot of intermittent fasting. But we talk about intermittent fasting sometimes being a 12-12, like 12-hour window of eating and fasting. But that is actually how we should be eating. That is technically not fasting. But if you don't fast, that is a good way to start. And if it is safe to do so, you can move to a 14 and 16-hour fasting window. You want to support your detox pathways with cruciferous foods, your cabbage, your cauliflower, your Brussels sprouts, all those kinds of things, and with nutrients such as glutathione or NAC. You need to support your gut health daily, my friends. I had IBS for most of my life. I am now 10 years IBS free. I still take a gut supplement every single day to nourish it. I still eat my fermented foods, my probiotic rich foods every single day. I'm still cognizant of my stress because stress deeply affects your gut microbiome. It is something you need to support every single day. And then again, you want to correct the nutrient deficiencies I spoke about. There are very few real diseases in the world, but there are plenty of deficiencies and imbalances. And what I mean by that, if you think about it, things like Lyme disease, that, of course, that is that's a viral infection. We have a lot of bacterial and viral infections that we can then classify as disease. But Hashimoto's is not a disease. Diabetes is not a disease. They are imbalances. They are deficiencies. There is a root cause to it. So there are very few real diseases in the world, but there are plenty of deficiencies and plenty of imbalances. And this is why, through my own personal practice, through vitamin G nutraceuticals, and with a functional medicine approach, everything we do is based on these 3 core systems: correcting nutrient deficiencies, finding the root cause, and fixing it at a cellular level. So just a little bit, this is one of the solutions that we have. It's what led me to develop vitamin G. We do have information for you guys around that if you've got questions or want to know more. The Namibian Vitamin G team is here. I'm not going to go into detail with this, but basically we have formulated nutraceuticals to support correcting or rebalancing these core areas within the body. Your gut, your inflammation and immune system, your detox pathways. We have one for thyroid as well and Hashimoto's, and then your stress response, because that's such a big problem at the moment. So we'd be happy to share some more information with you. These nutraceuticals are a piece of the puzzle. We are not relying on a supplement. A supplement is there to supplement what you are already doing. It is a piece of the puzzle, but it is a very, very, very important piece. If you take one of these legs of the table away, it will collapse. In order to keep it strong, you need your nutrition, you need your nutraceuticals, you need your exercise or your lifestyle medicine. You need to know your genetics. There's pillars to this table of health, healing, and health optimization. So the truth is that we already have absolutely everything we will ever need to heal in what nature has already given us through nutrition, through lifestyle medicine, through nutraceuticals. We just need to learn how to use what we already have available. And if anything tonight, my friends, I hope that this has planted a seed for you. If nothing else, that you will go forward from tonight, do your own reading, your own research, and look at how you can take these 3 core systems and start to implement a more holistic approach in your treatment or care of your patients. As Yvette said earlier on this evening, we are all here with one goal in mind, with the same goal, and that is for better health, for ourselves, for our patients, for our families, for the world, in whatever way that needs to happen. And what we have shared with you tonight is core pieces of that puzzle of helping people get better. So go forward, do your own reading, do your own research. And if you have any questions around nutrition, holistic health, functional medicine, vitamin G, then please, myself and the team are around to spend time with you this evening. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any questions before we carry on?
Okay, I'm just going to repeat that question for everybody on Zoom. The question was, are there any studies showing the effect of 100 grams of protein and the effect on cholesterol? Is that right? So as far as I know, I don't know any specific studies that I can call up on 100 grams of protein specifically with cholesterol. However, the link, or how do I say this? Cholesterol is not impacted by protein. The only effect that protein would have on your cholesterol is the more protein you are eating, the more satiated you're going to be, the less reliant you will become on carbohydrates, or the less cravings you're going to have of carbohydrates. And it's your carbs, it's your glucose, it's your sugars that are impacting your cholesterol, not your protein. The way that protein could affect cholesterol is the quality of protein that you are eating. Is it bad quality eggs, like not your pasture raised or free range eggs? Is it an excess of conventionally raised meat, which is very high in omegas? That could impact cholesterol, but your protein intake from healthy forms of protein at 100 grams should not be affecting cholesterol, because cholesterol is affected by your glucose, your sugars. It's affected by your liver health. Cholesterol is produced within the liver. So if you are experiencing high cholesterol, you should be investigating doing a 14-day or a 10-day liver detox and seeing is the root cause in there. But one thing that is important to know that cholesterol can be impacted by your hormones, and especially for women going through perimenopause or menopause, it's very, very normal to see an increase in your cholesterol. That's nothing, like, don't worry about it, but just know that when you go through your, if we could call it your third phase of a woman's life, your diet does need to change, your hormones change, your brain physically changes. And we need to then start to adjust our diet or change our diet as well, possibly bringing down the carbs and actually increasing the protein and the healthy fats. Does that answer your question? Or Zoom, I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions from you guys that I can answer for now? I think everybody's really hungry, wants to get some water and some food. Luckily, it's gluten-free and super good for your gut. Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Stephanie? Stephanie, thank you so much for making this huge effort of coming to Namibia and sharing all your personal experience and your knowledge with us. And we hope you're going to come again.
Yes, please have me back. I love it here so far. Thank you. Guys?
Now going to have a quick snack break so that we can sort out the Zoom for our next speaker. We're going to call her up on Zoom. Please help yourself in the back, right? Healthy food, gluten-free food. And like I said before, if you need a break out that way, up the stairs, first door to your left. Right. Okay, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the food. Look how delicious and healthy it can be. And you know what? When you fill your stomach with nutritious food, your brain is not going to ask for more food. So you're not going to overeat, by the way. Your dietary center is extremely sensitive to that. So if you have enough nutrients in your diet, you're not going to be hungry, I promise you. All right. I'm going to hand over to Stephanie because she's going to introduce our next speaker, who we're going to Zoom in from Oslo.
Amazing. All right, I hope you are all fed and got that hydration, got your water in, and you are ready for our last speaker of the evening, last but not least. So really briefly, a little bit of a background. 3 years ago, I was at a talk arranged by a few doctors from the Institute of Functional Medicine. And they were sharing about the incredible results they were getting that were nothing short of miraculous with many of their patients, specifically with Alzheimer's, with rheumatoid arthritis, and with psoriasis. And they were talking about this product that they had been using called Balance Oil to really support their patients' omega-3 to 6 ratios. Now, you guys heard me talk a little bit earlier about the importance of your omega-3 to 6 ratio, and how when that is imbalanced, it can drive inflammation. Every single cell within the body needs omega-3s, and Martina is going to be jumping into this with you. But the reason we brought her on is because when I first discovered the company, I was intrigued by what these doctors were sharing and the results they were having with their patients. And I will never put my clients to prescribe something that I haven't first tried myself. So I thought, all right, let me give this a try. Ordered the Balance Oil. Within 30 days, I was blown away. I then got every single member of my family onto this, including my dogs that were dealing with joint pain. And I started to use it with my clients. And 3 years later, I am incredibly, still to this day, blown away by what keeps happening when I use this oil, this balance oil with my clients. So we have invited, because omega-3s, as I shared in my presentation, about 95% of the population is deficient. So there's a 95% chance you and your patients are in that category. And this is why we wanted to bring Martina in this evening to discuss this with you. So I'm going to hand over. She's zooming in all the way from Oslo. Martina, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and good evening. So my name is Martina Torrissen, and I am a research and development specialist at Symptom. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I just wanted to start by sharing a little bit about my background. I am a research scientist with a background in nutrition, specializing in lipids and omega-3 fatty acids. I have a bachelor and a master's degree of science in nutrition, as well as a PhD in animal and aquacultural sciences. And during my undergraduate studies, I developed a keen interest in preventive health and nutrition. So my bachelor thesis focused on the Mediterranean diet and its effects on cardiovascular disease, which demonstrates my early commitment to understanding how dietary patterns can positively impact and influence health outcomes. I then did my master's degree at Karolinska Institute through Stockholm University, and I spent my research year at the Research Institute Nofima in Norway, where I chose to delve deeper into the field of lipids and omega-3 fatty acids by conducting research on animal models and cell cultures. And this project laid the foundation for my subsequent doctoral studies, where I investigated the biological functions of some novel, very long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acids, also known as VLC PUFAs. And these are a class of omega-3 fatty acids that have received little scientific attention up until recent years, where emerging research, which I have contributed to, shows that they have some unique and distinct biological functions from the well-known omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA. And on the slide here, you can see my publications related to this. And that was just a little bit about my background. And as a researcher specializing in lipids and omega-3 fatty acids, my aim is to share how crucial the balance between the omega-6 and the omega-3 fatty acids is to our health, and how we can proactively manage this balance for better health outcomes. So today I will be delving into the importance of these fatty acids, their role in our bodies, and practical steps we can take to ensure that we are maintaining a healthy balance by introducing the Symptom balance concept. So let's start with just putting this all into context. And as you all are probably very familiar with, unhealthy lifestyle behaviors are well-established drivers of the development of several non-communicable diseases, also known as NCDs. However, the impact such behaviors may have on our health can vary considerably between individuals. So the question is then, how can we determine if an individual's unique set of lifestyle behaviors are producing disease? Accumulating evidence suggests that our lifestyle choices, like physical inactivity, poor sleep, and poor diet, are linked with activating oxidative and inflammatory processes. And these processes are the primary drivers behind the cell and tissue damage that leads to a range of NCDs, including atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease, central nervous system disease such as dementia and stroke, diabetes, and cancer. NCDs are the leading causes of morbidity and mortality worldwide. Of the global reported deaths of about 56 million in 2015, 40 million were due to NCDs, and that's 70%. Cardiovascular disease accounts for most NCD deaths, with about 18 million people annually, followed by cancers with around 9 million, respiratory diseases with around 4 million, and diabetes with around 2 million. And I think we all agree that this is too much, especially when it is possible to prevent or reduce the risk of these. But to do so, we need a proactive approach. And this brings us to the importance of personalized nutrition in disease prevention and health optimization. Because as we know, NCDs generally take many years to develop. So by quantifying and monitoring inflammatory biomarkers in asymptomatic individuals, we can identify early signs of potential health issues, and we can take actionable measures to address these before they continue to progress. And this proactive strategy is not only pivotal in preventing the development of NCDs, but it also allows for the monitoring of the effectiveness of such preventive measures. And personalized nutrition takes this concept a step further by considering individual differences in metabolism that can influence dietary needs. Because just as our genetic makeup can render us more or less susceptible to certain conditions, it can also affect how we metabolize nutrients, including essential fatty acids. So therefore, understanding an individual's unique fatty acid profile through blood testing becomes crucial. And these tests measures the levels of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, among others, and provide insights into dietary imbalances and metabolic status. And data from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have actually found that health screening increases early disease detection, it increases personal health awareness, and it empowers people to actively participate in their care and consequently have better health outcomes, which makes proactive health screening an indispensable tool in promoting individual well-being and reducing the burden of NCDs on both individuals and healthcare systems. So this is where the omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids emerge as critical players. And this is because omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids, as you probably know, belong to two families of fatty acids that are both essential to human health due to the various roles that they have in our bodies and the fact that we need to obtain them from our diet. However, balancing the ratio is crucial in order to maintain health, namely due to the various biological roles that these fatty acids have in our bodies, including in influencing cell membrane structure, cell signaling, gene expression, and the production of bioactive lipid mediators, all of which ultimately affects our health and risk of disease. So the role of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids in regulating inflammatory processes is especially noteworthy. And in general, the omega-6 fatty acids tend to promote inflammation, while the omega-3 fatty acids have anti-inflammatory properties. So therefore, balancing the ratio is crucial for maintaining proper immune function and inflammation levels in the body, which, as I started out stating, is the primary driver behind the cell and tissue damage that underpins the development of NCDs. And as you can see on the figure here, the metabolic conversion of linolenic acid to arachidonic acid and of alpha-linolenic acid to EPA shares the same enzymes. And this means that the rate of synthesis of arachidonic acid and EPA will depend upon the relative availability of the substrate, like linolenic acid and alpha-linolenic acid. So now let's talk about how what we eat affects our health. because the typical Western diet is characterized by 5 to 15 times higher intake of linolenic acid than alpha-linolenic acid, which means that linolenic acid is the dominant substrate for the pathway we just saw on the previous slide. And this might also explain why the metabolism of alpha-linolenic acid to EPA and DHA appears limited in humans, and why the levels of arachidonic acid in blood and many cell types greatly exceeds the levels of EPA and DHA. And this imbalance, it shows up in our bodies as higher levels of arachidonic acid compared to EPA and DHA. And it is what we often refer to as the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, or sometimes more specifically, the arachidonic acid to EPA ratio. And Symptom actually has one, if not the largest database on fatty acid profiles on a global scale. And if we take a look at the figure here, we can see that the median arachidonic acid to EPA ratio is higher than 10 to 1 in all continents in our database. And it is reasonable to suspect that since this is from voluntarily home-based health testing, this population cohort may include some selection bias, as individuals who engage in this may possess a heightened interest in health, and we can therefore reasonably expect these numbers to be even higher in the general population. In fact, when we look at the literature, several studies actually report the existing ratio in almost all populations to fall within the range of 10 to 25 to 1, while in contrast, a ratio of 3 to 1 is considered optimal for human health. So the rise of non-communicable diseases worldwide therefore comes as no surprise, given the pervasive adoption to Western dietary patterns, which are characterized by high intake of processed foods, refined sugars, and unhealthy fats. These diets are excessive in omega-6 fatty acids, which are found in vegetable oils and processed foods, while inadequate in omega-3 fatty acids, which are commonly found in fatty fish and fish oil and certain plant sources, such as flaxseed and walnuts. And it is this balance that messes with our body's natural way of dealing with inflammation, which can then lead to chronic inflammation, which, as we saw, is a big factor in many of the diseases that we see on the rise today. But in contrast, diets like the Mediterranean diet, with lots of healthy fats and less processed foods, abundant in polyphenols and polyunsaturated fatty acids, are linked to better health, reduced inflammation, and a lower risk of disease. So it is important to understand how what we eat can either help or harm our health in the long run. And by choosing foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids and balancing our diets, we can take big steps towards staying healthy. Now, in order to better understand this, I want to take you through the mechanisms by which these fatty acids exert their pro- and anti-inflammatory signaling and explain why balancing the ratio is so important. And first off, the omega-6 fatty acids, as you may know, they play a crucial role in promoting inflammation as part of the body's natural defense mechanisms. So when the tissues are injured or infected, the omega-6 fatty acids, they serve as substrates for the production of pro-inflammatory mediators, such as prostaglandins and leukotrienes. And these fatty acids, they are then metabolized by the enzymes cyclooxygenase and lipooxygenase within the cell membranes. And through a series of biochemical reactions, they are transformed into bioactive molecules, which are commonly referred to as eicosanoids and includes the prostaglandins and leukotrienes. The prostaglandins, for instance, they are lipid compounds that play diverse roles in the inflammatory response. They are involved in vasodilation, the recruitment of immune cells, and the modulation of pain and fever. And similarly, the leukotrienes are lipid mediators that contribute to inflammation by enhancing the vascular permeability and promoting the migration of immune cells to the site of injury or infection. So by serving as precursors for these pro-inflammatory mediators, the omega-6 fatty acids, they facilitate the initiation and propagation of the inflammatory response. And these mediators, they will recruit immune cells to the site of injury or infection, initiating an inflammatory response to help eliminate pathogens and promote tissue repair. And in this sense, the omega-6 fatty acids are essential for an effective immune response and for maintaining tissue homeostasis. However, it is important to recognize that the balance between the omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids is key to regulating inflammation and preventing its dysregulation, which can lead to chronic inflammatory conditions and its associated diseases. So in order to better understand this, let's now look at the omega-3 fatty acids' role in this. Because while the omega-6 fatty acids are known for their role in promoting inflammation, the omega-3 fatty acids are known for their contrasting role with their anti-inflammatory properties. And one of the primary ways that EPA and DHA exert their anti-inflammatory effects is by reducing the availability of arachidonic acid, which, as we just saw, is a precursor to the pro-inflammatory eicosanoids within the cell membranes. And by incorporating EPA and DHA into cell membranes in place of arachidonic acid, they effectively compete with arachidonic acid for enzymatic conversion. And as a result, there is a decrease in the production of the pro-inflammatory eicosanoids derived from arachidonic acid, and consequently, a dampening to the overall inflammatory response. Moreover, EPA and DHA also directly inhibit the activity of enzymes such as cyclooxygenase and lipooxygenase, which, as we just saw, are responsible for the synthesis of pro-inflammatory eicosanoids from arachidonic acid. So by interfering with these enzymatic pathways, EPA and DHA further suppresses the production of inflammatory mediators and contributes to a state of reduced inflammation. And additionally, EPA and DHA have been shown to modulate the expression of various genes involved in inflammation, further contributing to their anti-inflammatory effects. And these omega-3 fatty acids, they also possess the ability to stimulate the production of specialized pro-resolving mediators, also known as SPMs, which play a crucial role in resolving inflammation and promoting tissue repair. So, to repeat myself, problems arise when there is an imbalance or excessive intake of omega-6 fatty acids relative to the omega-3 fatty acids. And typically, acute inflammatory responses, which are critical for combating infections or injuries, they are quickly resolved by the specialized pro-resolving mediators derived from the long-chain omega-3 PFAS, EPA, and DHA. But when the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is unbalanced and in favor of the omega-6 fatty acids, the environment becomes highly prothrombotic and pro-inflammatory. So maintaining a balanced omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is essential in order to prevent excessive and prolonged inflammatory responses, which are characterized by continuous release of pro-inflammatory mediators. And this chronic inflammation is what can result in tissue damage, metabolic disturbances, and potentially trigger the development of autoimmune diseases. In addition to being linked with decreased production of arachidonic acid, the derivative eicosanoids, an increase in the omega-3 PFA content is linked with decreased levels of other inflammatory markers, including various cytokines and chemokines acute phase proteins, and adhesion molecules. And as a result of their various interacting anti-inflammatory and inflammation-resolving actions, an increased intake of EPA and DHA can have therapeutic potential in diseases involving inflammation. And the anti-inflammatory effects of EPA and DHA are likely to extend beyond the classic chronic inflammatory diseases into age-related conditions, which are characterized by low-grade inflammation, such as cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, cognitive decline, and sarcopenia. However, the positive effects also involve several processes in addition to inflammation, such as beneficially modifying blood lipids and platelet aggregation, contributing to lower risk of cardiovascular disease, as well as a range of other mechanisms. So with that, let's now shift our focus a bit to the specific importance of omega-3 levels in our blood, because while we have now discussed the critical balance between the omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids, understanding and maintaining optimal levels of omega-3s in our blood also offers distinct health advantages on its own. So monitoring omega-3 levels in the blood provides a direct measure of our intake and absorption of these essential fatty acids. And optimal omega-3 levels are associated with numerous health benefits, where the cutoff values from optimal, intermediate, and undesirable, which you can see on the line here from red to green, they are associated with the most to the least beneficial health effects, respectively, and especially in regard to cardiovascular protection. So, as we have discussed, maintaining a balanced omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is fundamental in managing inflammation, which is a precursor to many NCDs, including cardiovascular disease. However, while the balanced ratio is essential, it is also crucial to recognize the independent value of the omega-3 levels in our blood. And notably, EPA and DHA, they have been extensively researched for their cardiovascular benefits. And I know this figure here is very extensive, but I just want to illustrate the numerous mechanisms in which EPA and DHA are involved when it comes to cardiovascular protection. And I promise I will not go into detail on all of this, but overall, they include reducing triglycerides, lowering blood pressure, and preventing arrhythmias, which can lead to heart attacks. Furthermore, beyond cardiovascular health, the omega-3 fatty acids, they're crucial for brain health and cognitive function. They are integral components of neuronal cell membranes, and they play a vital role in maintaining membrane fluidity, which is essential for proper cell signaling. And studies also suggest that higher omega-3 levels correlate with decreased cognitive decline in older adults and improved outcomes in mood disorders. So in addition to these benefits, maintaining optimal omega-3 levels has been linked with various other positive health outcomes, such as better eye health, reduced symptoms of metabolic syndrome, and improved immune response. So while the balance of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids is crucial for reducing the overall inflammation, the specific monitoring and optimization of omega-3 levels in our blood can lead to targeted benefits across multiple bodily functions, and therefore provides a robust strategy for enhancing long-term health and wellness. By looking at data from the Symptom database, we see that there is a prevalence of inadequate omega-3 levels worldwide. And this is especially true when we look at individuals who report not consuming omega-3 supplements, or when we group together those who report consuming other brand omega-3 supplements than the Symptom Balance Oil. But when we look at individuals who report consuming the Symptom Balance Oil, a greater proportion of individuals reaches both an optimal omega-6 to omega-3 balance and optimal omega-3 levels in their blood. And the Symptom oil, balance oil, is especially formulated for this purpose, with the combination of fish oil and olive oil to protect the fish oil from oxidation and to increase the absorption of omega-3 fatty acids in the body. So therefore, the Symptom balance oil combined with the balance test is our solution to effectively managing and optimizing your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio and your omega-3 levels. The balance oil is created specifically to help you reach an optimal omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, as well as optimal omega-3 levels. And the balance test will help you quantify and monitor these levels so that you can take actionable measures to adjust these according to your individual needs. So in conclusion, as we strive for optimal health and well-being, it is clear that achieving a balanced omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is a fundamental part to this, and recognizing pervasive imbalances in modern diets, we must proactively address this party to mitigate the risk of chronic inflammation and NCDs. So therefore, with our evidence and test-based solution, we offer a pathway towards optimizing our omega-6 to omega-3 ratio and enhancing the omega-3 levels. And by consuming the balance oil, which is specifically formulated blend of fish oil and olive oil, where the olive oil not only shields the fish oil against oxidation, but it also facilitates optimal omega-3 levels and optimal omega-3 ratio. It provides an important tool for monitoring the effectiveness of this supplement so that you can take actionable measures to, so you can actively take part in monitoring your blood levels, and all of this with the overarching goal of optimizing health for a long and healthy life. And I think that was all.
Thank you so much, Martina. I think I definitely learned something else today about omega-3s and omega-6, or a little bit more extensive knowledge. I don't know about you. And yes, it absolutely is about the balance between your omega-3s and omega-6s. So if you would be here in person, you would also be receiving a wonderful gift from us. So next time we'll just have to fly you out so that we can actually thank you in person. But thank you so much. Are there any questions on the floor for Martina regarding omega-3s? Omega-6. It's all clear as mud. Okay, Tanya, what kind of fish oil?
It's from small pelagic fish. The producer is Lucy from Iceland.
What kind of fish? Salmon.
Small pelagic fish.
Oh, small. Yeah. Small aquatic fish. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? No. Yes. Yes. Do you want to come to the front, Stephanie, please? Yeah, we actually have tests available. Dr. Yvette has tests, and she has the Zinzina oil. In the very near future, I will also be stocking it. I've been running after Zinzina for 2 years now, but finally Yvette has pushed my button a little bit more. All right, so but it is available here. Dr. Yvette has it in her practice, the tests as well as the balancing oil and other products from them. Okay. Stephanie, do you want to come close off? About 6 weeks. Okay. Before we finish off completely, I have got the CPD certificate, so you guys can just come to me. And I think there's still some food left if you want. And there's also vitamin G, the inflammation shield, right? If you want to try it. So it's not some strange juice that's standing there. The yellow color is from turmeric, and the sweet taste is from stevia. All right. So it's all safe. It's all safe and natural. All right. All right. Stephanie.
I wanted to clarify for them as well around the test. So just before we end off, as Dr. Yvette was sharing, if you did want to get your hands on the Zinzino test, it is available here or through Dr. Yvette and shortly through Dr. Alga. Once you do the test this side, within 3 weeks, you will have the results back. It gets sent back to Norway to an independent lab, and then you will have it back. There is an option to do the test and then use the oil at the same time, or for some of you, a lot of my patients, I know, all my clients, they're like, I'm 95% chance I'm out of balance, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the oil anyway. So there are some options available for you. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time this evening, for coming here with hopefully what was an open heart and an open mind, ready to receive everything that we've shared. And I truly hope that this has been incredibly valuable for you, and the things you learned tonight will impact you and your patients in a very positive way. So thank you so much. The entire team is here at the back and in front to answer any questions that you might have, and we've got lots of food left, so please help yourself. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Another thing, we do have genetic tests available in Namibia as well. And very soon, I think it's in October, right? Optiway and GeneWay, they will launch stool tests for our microbiome testing, for our bowel bacteria testing. So we will have it available. There's no need to just sort of start guessing. There's scientific tests that can show us what's going on. Yeah, we're there. We're there. All right. Good night, everybody, and thank you so much. Whoever needs their CPD certificates, please come to